What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? My stepdad tried to kill me when I was little. TW for domestic violence and language. My stepdad was a grade A asshole. He was in my life from the beginning, after my bio dad up and left, till I was about 13 to 14. He was an abusive, alcoholic, jobless dickwad who constantly physically and verbally abused both my mom and I. On multiple occasions, either my mom or I called the cops and watched them drag the sorry sack of shit out the house and throw him in jail for a couple of days. They were, sadly, the happiest days of my childhood. When I was little, I can remember countless times where I had gotten into physical fights with the man, resulting in black eyes, cuts, bruises, the works. I won't go into detail any further, since it's kinda hard to talk about, but I will say this. I never told anyone about this. This is the first time I've gotten it down in writing or out in the open at all. When I was little, 5 to 6 years old, I'd say, I lived with my mom and stepdad in my stepdad's parents' attic. My mom frequently went out during the day for work, and didn't come home till late evening or night. Well, one day, after my parents had a pretty hostile argument, my mom left for work and my dad was pretty pent up. This is what I remember and continue to remember almost every day since the event. My dad took one of those large, heavy-duty trash bags out of his parents' kitchen, dragged me into the living room of the attic, stuffed me in the bag, and tied it after letting out some air. I remember being terrified, too scared to act out of fear of getting hit or yelled at. I waited till I heard him close the attic door, then proceeded to use my fingers to claw a hole through the trash bag. I remember it taking a while, since I wasn't that strong at the time due to malnourishment and, well, my age. But I eventually made it out and laid on the floor just waiting for my mom to get home. I'd give she knows what happened, if she just thought I was playing with a trash bag or what, but that's what I remember and I've been carrying it for years. Thankfully she eventually left that dirt bag and I can now happily say I have an amazing father who I love very much, so this story does have a happy ending. Thanks for reading my little vent. I'm kinda terrified to post this, but getting it out finally will do me some good. When I was young, probably around age 9 or 10, I was walking home with my dog from a house around the block when he cut the corner and walked diagonally through the yard of this super mean old lady who lived at the end of your street. She was in her yard at the time tending to these really fancy looking rose bushes she had growing in beds along the border with her neighbor. My dog was a very friendly golden retriever who didn't even really come near her and certainly didn't do anything threatening. But she sprayed the fuck out of him with some kind of insecticide or other chemical she was using on her roses. I ran back home with the dog and hosed him off. He coughed a bunch, but seemed otherwise fine. I didn't tell my parents because somehow I thought I was going to get into trouble for letting the dog walk in her yard. I'm glad I didn't tell them, though, because I decided that night to sneak downstairs, out the half-bath window, and down the street to her yard where I cut down every goddamn rose bush I could get my hands on. When I was a teenager, I worked at a novelty tourist shop near me. Being the idiot that I was, I stole a wad of cash from the store. It was $100 in ones. I told nobody, but they knew it was missing. Right about the same time, a coworker who was always trying to get me fired was telling someone she got about $100 in tips from her other job. They ended up firing her because they didn't trust that it wasn't her. When I was 16, I conspired with a heroin addict I met online to help me off myself with heroin and dump my body in a dumpster in exchange for my valuables. I lived in a small town and he was in a bigger city where my school had an upcoming trip. We'd planned for me to slip away during the trip and meet up with him to do the deed. He chickened out last minute and ghosted me. I've struggled with disordered eating for at least a decade. It ebbs and flows. I know it's unhealthy, but the toxic part of me loves the feeling of being empty. Several years ago it was really bad. I was at my lowest weight ever, I had brain fog, difficulty breathing. When I started eating again, my stomach would get really bloated even if I only ate a small amount. I gained weight in the last year or so and my depression and anxiety got really bad for a while. My family thinks I don't want to spend time with them. However, I just wanted to stay home because trying on my clothes and the idea of being in public made me want to kill myself. It was easier on me mentally to just stay home. I can feel myself slipping back into my old disordered eating habits, unfortunately. When I was younger, I lived with my grandmother. Not long after I turned 18, her health started to decline, that sort of decline that means she won't be around for much longer. Over the months, I did my best to take care of her, getting her to the hospital when she needed, and other things. We had someone coming every day to help her with things I couldn't. Well, what my family doesn't know is that the night she passed, I was in the living room watching TV. My dog was in bed with my grandma, and I started to hear him whimper and bark. I knew what was happening. I knew that if I acted, I could potentially save her. I didn't want to watch her suffer anymore, though, to watch her live with so much pain, and unable to do anything for herself anymore. So I made the choice to let her pass before making any calls. She lived 92 years, and the only regret I have is that she passed a month after I would have graduated if I hadn't been kicked out of school. She had been in good enough health at the time to go to my graduation. I still kick myself for how stupid I was back then. Edit: I didn't expect this much support. Thanks. I'm not too torn up about letting her pass. I knew it was for the best. She was such a great person. She didn't deserve to live in such a poor manner any longer than she already had. I don't regret what I did. I regret what I had done that got me kicked out of school, that I didn't try and make it to graduation for her. I think I've lived my life so far in a way that she'd be proud of. Not graduating before she passed is the only regret I really have in this life so far, and I'm 35 now. So I think I'm doing pretty good. I had an IBS attack once and had to violently shit in a church grounds behind someone's car. Used underwear to wipe too and left that there. Not proud. My PTSD isn't getting better. I have nightly nightmares of the industrial accident I was in. I see my coworker ripping his burnt face off every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. I'm no longer terrified as much by it. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel an enormous amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes when I'm not sleeping, I'll hear the scream he made in the distance, and it'll make my blood feel like ice. Therapy hasn't done much. My wife, her mom, and I bought a house about 2 years ago. Just from talking to the neighbors, I gathered that the family who lived here before had a daughter that was mixed up with the wrong people. We had some random person knock on our door at night saying he needed gas. We are down a long driveway. No way you'd randomly walk up to our house to ask for help. I think he was looking for the people who used to live here. And then another time, Sunday morning, making pancakes for the family, I get a knock on the door, and it's 4 sheriff's officers saying they received a 911 call that hung up, and it was from the house. We don't have a landline, and I assured them my wife and 2-year-old did not make any call. They mentioned a name of the previous occupants, and I let them know we moved in earlier this year, and they seemed okay with that and left. Anyways, I was doing some yard work and struck up conversation with the neighbor. He saw the police cars and asked what was up. I told him the situation, and he just goes, "Oh yeah, that family was messed up. The cops were probably being cautious considering the shooting." "What shooting?" I asked. He kinda looks at me with a sad, worried face. "The shooting in your house." "Wait, what?" I say, truly baffled. He then proceeds to tell me that about 2 years before, the father in the house confronted his daughter and boyfriend he didn't like and shot and killed the boyfriend in the house. Our state doesn't have a disclosure law, so we never knew. I was blown away. All the strange happenings kinda made sense now. He said the frames of the victim had kinda terrorized them for a while, cause the police were taking so long to press charges, tears, midnight fireworks, odd shit that the neighbors hated. I was shocked but just said, "That's crazy, but hey, do me a favor and never tell my wife or Mill about that. They are a little spooked by things like that." So the TRDL is that we live in a murder house and I'm the only one of my family that knows. 2 years ago, one of my best friends and I went halfsies on a fuck ton of Xanax. On June 8th, we both took Xanax from the batch we split. I woke up, he didn't. No one knows I had anything to do with the drugs that killed him, and I don't know if I can ever bring myself to tell someone. It's heartbreaking hearing of so many people who were sexually assaulted as children and feeling like they have no option but to hide it, lest it cause irreparable rifts between friends, family, and other close ones. Just want to let all of you affected by this know that if you did go public, you're not the cause of any conflict. no matter how anybody else paints it. You were the victim of one of the most heinous things one human being can do to another. The source of conflict is all down to whoever perpetrated the violence against you, and the shame should not be yours to live with. I found my adoption papers a few years ago when I was looking for a copy of my birth certificate. I know my birth mom, I just never had a relationship with her. My maternal grandmother took me in 2002. I never knew she adopted me, I just knew that one day I ended up living with her after telling her one day I don't want to go back home, lol. I also found the letter that my mom wrote as to why she was giving me up. That one really hurt. Edit, didn't expect this many upvotes, honestly lol, thank you everyone for your kind words. My grandma is really the sweetest person ever, I'm forever grateful for her, green heart, but I just wanted to say now that I'm older I understand why my mom did what she did, and believe it or not we actually have a cordial relationship now, lol. Edit 2, this brought back some unsettling feelings, I thought I was over, lol, but I want to thank you guys for your own stories and kind words. They made me realize that I'm not the only one who had a rough life growing up, and I shouldn't let that stop me from healing and being the best that I can be. This has been one of the worst years of my life. I've been taking loss after loss, and I honestly felt like unaliving myself. I kept coming back to read the comments, and I see how strong everyone is and didn't let what they went through stop them from doing better. So I just wanted to say that I've made an appointment to start therapy again, and I'm going to be completely honest about how I truly feel and open up more. Thank you so much, Reddit, sad face, blue heart. Also, I haven't been the best granddaughter lately, so I'm spending more quality time with my grandma and helping her out with whatever she needs. Smiley face, smiley face. I was molested on a cruise ship by an employee when I was 8. Happened about 30 years ago. It's not my secret, but my mom's. And I'm not hiding it from everyone, just the person who it potentially matters to the most. When my mom was in high school in the 60s, she had a long-term serious boyfriend named Jimmy. They were each other's first, they were together for years, and were planning on getting married. He went away to college, my mom stayed behind, but they were still together. You know what happened next? He cheated and got the new girl pregnant. He comes home to break the news to my mom. Abortion was not legal at the time. He basically says that he wants to be with my mom, but he has no choice but to marry this other girl. My mom was devastated. Here's the secret, my mom was also pregnant by him, but hadn't told him yet. She decided she wasn't ever going to tell him. Jimmy went on to marry the other girl and never knew my mom was also pregnant. She told me that she later threw herself down a flight of stairs to cause a miscarriage. My mom actually reconnected with Jimmy during the early days of Facebook. She didn't have an account, but asked me to look for him using mine. He was still married to the same person. My mom was married to my dad. They wrote to each other for a while, using my account. Signed their messages saying I love you. My mom passed away a number of years ago. I think about this knowledge I had that Jimmy doesn't. This major life event thing that he doesn't even know happened. That could have changed the trajectory of many lives. I'm certainly not going to tell him. It's not my secret to tell. Edit, there seems to be a part of this story that I didn't make clear enough. My mom had a miscarriage and never had that baby. It was an intentional miscarriage by throwing herself down the stairs. Jimmy is not my father.